Okay, so we are now starting Hilchos Yesodei Torah Perek Chamishi, but as we usually do, we're going to start with the Sefer Mitzvos because that was the game plan. Okay. Oh, actually, sorry. Before we start with the Sefer Mitzvos, let's see where these mitzvos appear in order. Okay, you know what? I'm going to share the whole screen. Hold on. Okay, so if we go to, let's go to Mishneh Torah. Where are we here? Yesodei Torah. Okay, so in Yesodei Torah, you see here we have Hilchos Yesodei Torah. Yesh bichlalan eser mitzvos, sheish mitzvos aseh, arba mitzvos los aseh. Zehu pratan. First one, leda sheyesham Eloka. Second one, so to know that there exists a God. Two, shlo yale b'machshava sheyesham Eloka zulas yeshem. Eloah zulas yeshem, I guess, right? To not entertain the thought that there exists a God other than Hashem. Three, liyachado. Four, le'ovo, to love him. Three, to unify him. Four, to love him. Five, liyar, to be in awe of him. And then we got six, lekadesh shemo, to sanctify his name. And seven, shlo lechalel shemo. So this is, just to take note, even though I know we haven't read the mitzvah yet, this is now the first non-cognitive mitzvah, right? The first 5 mitzvahs have all been mitzvahs that you essentially do in your mind, or if you want to broaden that, mitzvah chovos halavavos, basically, right? Of the mind and the emotions. So these mitzvahs are now going to be in terms of action, okay? Interesting thing though is how, I think we could all agree that the first 5 mitzvahs are very, very important and they're fundamental. So this is like the first mitzvah. I mean, obviously it's still in the fundamentals because it's Yesodei Torah. This is the first mitzvah outside of the core 5. Okay, but if you look at the ordering in the Sefer Mitzvos, okay, so in the I'm using the minyan of mitzvahs here because we need to look at this anyway. So you have mitzvah rishona, mitzvah say leda sheyesham Eloka. Okay, that's the same. Then liyachado, that's also the same because these are asehs. 3 le'avo, 4 liyar mimenu. 5 lihispalel lo, which in the Mishneh Torah is in Sefer Ahava. 6 ledovka bo, that is in Hilchos Talmud Torah. Wait. Hold on, I'm just blanking here. I'm just blanking here. Hold on just 1 second here. Is that in or is that in Deos? Hold on. That is in Deos. Yeah, all right. For some reason, I thought that he talked about it in Talmud Torah. Yeah, just a little mistake there. Okay, 7 lihishabia bishmo, to swear in his name. That's going to be obviously in Sefer Hafla'ah. 8 lihidamos b'drachav v'tomim v'yisharim, to resemble him in his ways, his good and upright ways. That's in Hilchos Deos. And then 9 is lekadesh shemo. Okay, is kiddush Hashem. So thing to keep in mind here is like, why doesn't he put kiddush Hashem in the minyan hamitzvos in the same place that he does it in the Mishneh Torah, which would be right after Yiras Hashem? Okay, I don't think we talked about that when we went through this. I don't think we were thinking on that particular of a level. So that's one question just as we want to throw out there. And then even weirder is where he puts chilul Hashem without looking it up. Do you want to guess where it is, or I don't know if you remember. I certainly didn't remember where he put it. What?
2.
2, yeah, that's a good guess, right? That's where you would expect it. So he puts it in 63. Yeah, Shalom l'chala es shem hakadosh baruch hu. So just to see the context here, or to refresh our memory, because I don't remember the context. So we have, we're not going to read through all 62, don't worry, but we have Shalom lalas b'machshav sheyesham Eloka zulasi Hashem. So that's where it belongs in the Mishneh Torah. Then we got the actual Avodah Zarah stuff from 2 through going on and on and on and on. All this is Hilchos Avodah Zarah pretty much. Okay, well, we got it.
Checker also Avodah Zarah?
Yeah, I mean, he puts. Good question. Doesn't he? I'm.
Well, it's Nevi Sheker about Avodah Zarah, and then Nevi Sheker about Hashem, right?
Yeah. So in Yesodei Torah, he's going to put the certain Navi Sheker things about Hashem in Yesodei Torah, and then in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, he puts the Navi Sheker stuff there in the middle. So I guess that's still keeping consistent. Okay, then he goes on. All this stuff is still in Hilchos Avodah Zarah. And all of this is in Hilchos Goyim. He transitions to the Hilchos Goyim here. He puts in Shatnez, which is one of the Hilchos Goyim, but belongs more primarily in Hilchos Kilayim. Still continues on in the Avodah Zarah stuff. That's also Avodah Zarah. Okay, then he goes into how to relate to the nun, to the Avodah Zarah. That's sealing a covenant with them and letting them live, and having favor on, showing favor to them. Letting them dwell in our land, not marrying them. So this is all relating to the Avodah Zarah, and still all of that continues up through. Whoa! I just clicked something. All through here, not distancing them exceedingly. Okay, then waging war with them. This is still about how to relate to them, and going into war stuff. Okay, which you could still say is tied to interactions with the non-Jews. Amalek. Okay, then Birkas Hashem. So that's another mitzvah that relates to the Shem Hashem. Okay, is blasphemy. Then violating Shavuos Bitui. Then swearing in vain. Then Shlol Hashem Kadosh Baruch Hu. And then Shlol Nasos as Devar Hashem, not to test the word of Hashem. So it seems like he's categorizing it after Avodah Zarah, after relating to the non-Jews, and into the section of how we relate to the Shem Hashem.
In the mitzvah say it was after Lihishava Bishmo, right?
Let me check again. It was in the mitzvah say. It was not directly after.
Yeah,
it was,
but yeah. I'm saying
there
was Lihishava Bishmo, and then the Los Ases that we saw were like the Los Ases pertaining to that.
Yeah, it actually is strange though, right? Because I would have expected it to go Ledavka bo, Lihidamus bidrachav, Lihishaveh bishmo, and Lakadesh shmo, or Lakadesh shmo and Lihishaveh bishmo. Yeah.
I guess you could say, I guess maybe Lihishaveh bishmo is more directly relating to him than Lihidamus bidrachav.
Why? Because it's the Shem Hashem is more related to his essence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so these are, I want to bring this up before we even started, because I think as we go through the Sefer Mitzvahs and the Halachos, if we can answer these questions more precisely in terms of why he puts them where they are here versus why he puts them where they are in his Mishneh Torah thing. See, this shows he's not just making lists, because if it was making lists, you just use one, one is good enough. But why he classifies them differently in these places.
This way he gets to make two lists.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a kiyum in the list making drive. Okay, so let us now go to the Sefer Mitzvos. I think, sharing the entire screen so you can see the Sefer Mitzvos. Okay, good. Alrighty, so let us read this and we'll see where this takes us. Okay. Oh, I also want to make one more observation here before we even start, just because this is probably not your first Kiddush Hashem rodeo. You ask the average Jew, what is the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem? And what are they going to say?
Taking off your kippah when you're yelling on the bus.
Yeah, exactly. That's the primary form, right? That's a great example. Right. So one thing I find very interesting about this is I want to try, as we go through this, to I guess this is more of a sociology question, or halacha sociology. I don't know what you want to call it, but like I want to try to clarify, to articulate the distinction between the popular conception of Kiddush Hashem, where that is the big example, where you like the impression you make on other people, and specifically with non-Jews. Contrast that with the way that Kiddush Hashem is presented here, because certainly it is part of Kiddush Hashem, but like we're going to see that it's obviously that's not the primary form. Okay. So mitzvah test, mitzvah hatshis, the ninth mitzvah, hatzivu shnis tavinu al kiddush Hashem. Okay, so the that which we are commanded regarding the sanctification of the name. V'hu amru v'nikdashti b'zoch b'nei Yisrael, as it says, I shall be sanctified in the midst of the children of Israel. Now, this is my pet peeve that I've mentioned before, that it's not. okay, it's not Kiddush Yud K Vav K. It's Kiddush He Shin Mem. It's the sanctification of the name. It's not the sanctification of God. Now, you might counter and say, well, the pasuk says Mikdash Ti, right? Is I will be sanctified. But if you look at the pasuk in context, I'll just use the because we're here. So the pasuk in context says, so it's interesting. It leads with chilul Hashem. Sorry, this is in Vayikra Chaf Beis Lamed Beis. V'lo sachalalu es shem kodshi. You shall not desecrate my my transcendent or holy name. V'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Israel, and I will be sanctified among the children of Israel. Ani Hashem mekadishchem. I am Hashem who sanctifies you. So it is interesting that, I mean, undoubtedly the way the Rambam formulates both Kiddush Hashem and chilul Hashem is in terms of the name, not in terms of God. And I think it's not a stretch to read that into the pasuk also, meaning that via not desecrating my name, then I, Hashem, will be sanctified among Bnei Israel, but it's all via the name. That's one route you could take. The other route you can take is through a controversial radak, which I guess I wanted to show you guys in the first radak, in the first Tehillim share that we do. I almost call it a radak share. I mean, maybe that's what it is. but he says I don't remember which parak it is, but the radak says that God is his name. Now that's not to be taken literally, chas v'shalom, but he explains that since we can't know God except via his name, then many times when Hashem speaks about himself and us relating to him, then it's obvious that it means us relating to Hashem's name, you know, but he'll speak of it as in terms of us relating to him, because the only way we can relate to him is through his name. So I just want to point that out because it's a pet peeve of mine when people say, like, you know, Kiddush Hashem. You can say Kiddush Hashem, but it's sanctification of the name of God, not God himself.
Is that why is that controversial?
It's controversial because I always get very antsy when people say that things are God. You know, I get metaphysically antsy, like, no, only Hashem is Hashem. You know, his name is not him. You know, in fact, you know, you could say that should support my antsiness or it should refute it. No, that's something different. Wait, what am I thinking of? I don't know. Oh, side question, audio question. My fan is going crazy right now. Are you hearing the?
No, it's totally fine.
Okay, so we do have to work out this kink. I do think, by the way, that you were right, Isaac, that it is the microphone, my fancy mic, picking up on something from my computer. So I think either my fan theory is wrong, or using the Zoom mic from the laptop filters out the fan noise.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see.
I just heard you say fan theory, and
I heard that also.
Yeah, it's equivocal usage. Okay, all right. So he says, where are we? Okay, so that was the pasuk. Is I will be sanctified among the children of Israel. Okay, the inyan mitzvah zo. And the concept of this mitzvah, or the substance of this mitzvah, she'anu mitzuvim, is that we are commanded to lefarsim das ha'emes hazo barabim, to publicize. How do you guys translate das ha'emes when you translate it in your head?
True religion.
The true religion. Yeah, I think that's the common way to translate it. I don't think that's false. What about you, Isaac?
I'd say the true religion asterisk.
Okay, yeah, that's more accurate. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was focusing more on whether you call it a religion or a system or a regimen or whatever. That's definitely one question, which I assume is what your asterisk reference was.
Well, that's it actually has a link to
my blog post. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I was focusing more on the ha-ms part because I've heard it translated. So true religion is one way to say it. Religion of truth is another way, which I actually like better, because it implies it's the true religion, but it also implies that it's a religion that focuses around truth. And then the third thing, and I don't remember if this is from Rabbi Chait or Rabbi Moskowitz, the religion of reality, using ha-emes as the same way that, like, when the Rambam says that God is emes, it doesn't mean that God is truth. It means that God is reality, is the ultimate reality. And so the religion of reality is, I like that for the same reasons that I like religion of truth. But yeah.
Are you saying that everything is God?
Chas v'shalom. Delete the recording. Yeah. So this caught my eye because I'm not familiar with the Rambam using this phrase a lot. I mean, I think he does use it in the Mishneh Torah. I can't remember where though. So this it just caught my eye because it's definitely the first time we've seen this phrase in the writings of the Rambam here that we've done. Okay, so to publicize so this is also weird, right? Is to publicize the religion of truth in public, not to publicize the Shem Hashem. He puts it in terms of the Das HaEmes, you know? Again, not that that's false, but like just in terms of the name of the mitzvah, I would say it would focus more on the Shem Hashem rather than the true religion. This overheating of my laptop is worrying me. Okay, whatever. We'll see what
Is
happens.
it like melting the table or something?
No, it's not. It's even on metal, but I don't know. It doesn't usually get like this until much later into the year. So whatever. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so anyway, we should publicize the religion of truth in public. Oh, that's the other thing also, is that he emphasizes barabim, because the way I think of it is there's Kiddush Hashem and chilul Hashem, and there's Kiddush Hashem barabim and chilul Hashem barabim. Here he's saying that this is part of the very like iyun mitzvah, that barabim is like part of the idea of the mitzvah, unless he means lav davka rabim. Let's see what footnote 30 says. Ba'olam. Okay, so it might not mean davka rabim. It might mean it might just mean like universally. Okay. V'shelo nire b'kach mehezek shumazik, and that we should not be afraid from regarding this from the harm of any damager. Okay, so that's also interesting, is that there is an emotional component, which is to be fearless. Which I don't think of that as part of the mitzvah. I think of that as something that you would need in order to do the mitzvah, but not as iyun mitzvah. Okay.
I guess he's saying like part of it is the fact that you're doing it in a way that is unconcerned about other things, which
exactly.
I guess you could say that like that is when a person does that, it adds an additional like character to the thing that they're doing.
Right. Well, so I guess that's the question, right? Because you can, let's say, for example, you can have a soldier who charges into battle fearlessly, and a soldier that charges into battle where in a manner that he's afraid. And I would say that they're doing the same activity. But then the question is does the Rambam mean what you mean, which is just that it adds a character, or is like this part of the in other words, is this part of the substance of the mitzvah? That's what I'm not sure. I don't know if we could like get it just from this one phrase, but I think when we see the full picture, we might have be able to weigh in on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Then he goes on. Yeah.
I guess I'm talking partially from having an idea about it, but I'm gonna hold off on that until after.
Yeah. Okay. Then he says, also just to remind, in case we need to review, or in case people are jumping in at this point, what is the Rambam's? I'll ask you, see if you remember. What is the Rambam's stated objective in how he presents a mitzvah in the Sefer Mitzvos? Like, what's the goal? Like the goal in the Mishneh Torah is to tell you all the dinim. Goal here is not the dinim, rather
to explain the shame, I guess, like
the shame of the mitzvah, right?
Like, do you know what we're talking about?
So you know what we're talking about, right? So apparently all of this is necessary to know what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay. So then he goes on. He says the shiur, right? So the shiur, the measure of fearlessness. Ad shafilu yavo lanu anas aritz, that even to the point where if a anas here, I think, does not mean a rapist, even though it's often used that way. It means a coercer, who is aritz, who is intimidating, an intimidating coercer. The yikra osanu lach por bo yisala, and he calls upon us to deny God, exalted is he. Lo nishma lo, we should not obey him. Ella nimsor atzmenu, I don't know if this is lamus or lamaves behechle. We should absolutely or definitively or unequivocally give ourselves over to death. V'lo nasan lo lachshov shekafarnu af shelibenu mamin bo yisala, and that we should not let him think that we have denied him, and that I think af here means still, and that our mind still believes in him, exalted is he. V'zohi mitzvahs kiddush Hashem shenitztavinu ba kol bnei Israel, and this is the mitzvah of the sanctification of the name, in which all of Israel is commanded. Kolomar, namely to say, shenimsor atzmenu lamisa bidei haaretz, that we give ourselves over into death and at the hands of the intimidating person. Al ahavaso yis'aleh, over our, on account of our love of God, exalted is he, v'ha emuna ba'achduso, and our knowledge of his oneness. Kederech sha'asu. Okay, before we go to kederech, okay, so it's very clear when he says Zohi mitzvos kiddush Hashem shenitzavinu ba kol bnei Israel. It's clear, in case anyone had any doubt, it's clear that everything he listed in between, when he said inyan mitzvah zo and Zohi mitzvos kiddush Hashem, is part of the definition. It's not like he just like snuck in some details there. It's like that is the mitzvah, you know. Yeah. Is that...
It's interesting because now he's talking about it as like belief in God and his oneness, but before he had said das emes, which seems like another category.
True. Right. Yeah, so what's the unity there? I mean, you can say that this is kind of, this is not an answer, but like if you had to, if someone held a gun to your head and said, unify these two statements in the Rambam, you could say that the essence of the Das HaEmes is Yichud Hashem and Avas Hashem. Yichud Hashem being the core idea and Avas Hashem being the highest level of Avoda, the Oved Me'ava. So that's the core of the Das HaEmes, but I think you're right, is that Das HaEmes seems to be more than just those two mitzvahs or those two principles. Yeah, it's a good observation. Also, you notice here that he doesn't mention Yiras Hashem the second time around, but he does emphasize the fearlessness in the activity, that you shouldn't be afraid of the guy. And he's going to return to the theme of fear later on, I think. Okay, so now he gives an example. Kederech she'asu Hananiah, Mishael, va'Azariah b'mei Nebuchadnezzar HaRasha, like Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah did in the days of Nebuchadnezzar HaRasha, kasher hichriach lihishtakavos letzelem, when they were compelled to bow down to the idol. So this is the just going over the facts really quickly because a lot of people haven't learned Sefer Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar had a prophetic dream in which he was shown a statue with the head made of gold and the upper part made of the shoulders and the arms made out of silver, and the core of the body made out of bronze, I believe, and then the legs made out of iron and clay, and the feet made out of iron and clay. And it was, and then Daniel interpreted for him that it was a prophecy about what's going to happen at the end of days. And basically what happens is a stone is hewn out of the rock, out of the quarry, and then it smashes the statue and everything falls, and then the rock grows and fills the entire world. And basically the conventional interpretation is, it's the universal interpretation, is that these are the four kingdoms that are going to rule before the time of Mashiach. The Melech HaMashiach and Malchus Hashem is really the rock, and the four different types of metal are the other Malchios. So Nebuchadnezzar is the head of gold, is what Daniel says to him explicitly. So then basically Nebuchadnezzar praises Daniel, says, okay, good job interpreting this, and then Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue and then makes everyone bow down to it. And it's not clear whether the statue is Avodah Zarah, by the way, but I don't know if the Rambam holds that it is Avodah Zarah, but it seems like what Nebuchadnezzar was doing, like symbolically, is he makes a statue entirely out of gold, without the other metals, because he basically believes that he can override the Ratzon Hashem and establish his Malchus forever. So making everyone bow down to it, I mean, either it is Avodah Zarah or it's a repudiation of Nevuah or of Ratzon Hashem. So unclear, but the Rambam right now is saying that in whatever case, this would be a case of Kiddush Hashem. This might also, you could argue it's a Shas Hashmad, which the Rambam is going to talk about later on, that it was a time of persecution, or you could argue it was a time after that. So those are the facts. So they were all made to bow down to the Tzelem.
This is kind of a side observation, but like,
sure,
he was doing that like to show like his like kingdom would last forever, and like, I'm not even 100% sure like what kingdom that was, but it doesn't exist. Like totally doesn't exist anymore. And like,
yeah,
Like,
I mean, kingdoms were still kind of a new thing back then, right?
yeah.
I mean, I guess Egypt was the one that had lasted practically forever and was still around in his time, you know. So if you looked at Egypt, where it had been around for thousands and thousands of years, by the time, like, since the memory of human history, it seems doable, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Side point under side point. That was the why he built it in the valley of Shinar, because he was I forgot what's the earliest source that says this, that he built it on the site of Migdal Bavel. So basically, Migdal Bavel was trying to set up a society that would last forever, and they failed. So he's going to build his society there and succeed, because he's the the scion of Malchus Bavel. You know. Anyway, okay, so v'hishtachvu az kol b'nei Adam v'Yisrael bichlal, right? So this is not even just for b'nei Israel. This was all people were commanded to bow down, and Yisrael included. V'lo hayasham mekadesh shem shemaim. There's no one there who was mekadesh shem shemaim. Now he's using the phrase not mekadesh shem Hashem, not mekadesh es Hashem, not mekadesh but shem shemaim. Okay, which I know we say shem shemaim and shem Hashem are often interchangeable, but that's just pointing out the difference of the object here. V'haya b'kach cherpa gadola liYisrael. And this was a huge disgrace for Israel. She'avda mitzvah zomi kulam, that this mitzvah was lost from all of them. Now, footnote 34 says, Efshar nis alma. So it might not mean lost, it might mean neglected. So this mitzvah was neglected from all of them. V'lo hayasham mi shemakayim osa el hakol pachadu. No one fulfilled it, everyone was afraid. So that's another thing. So here he's emphasizing the fear and the conquering of the fear and the fact that everyone was afraid. Doesn't seem to be that this is like central to the mitzvah, but here we are. Okay. Ve'in chovas mitzvah zo ela lekagon oso hamamad ha'atzum. Now this is a weird statement. The obligation of this mitzvah is only regarding an example of that kind of great ma'amad, or severe ma'amad. Severe, like, I don't know how to translate ma'amad. Not standing. There's got to be a word that involves short. Say again?
Pillar?
I mean, when we say like Ma'amad Har Sinai, we mean like gathering, but it's like a standing gathering. I don't know, in a public display, public gathering. This mitzvah, the obligation of this mitzvah is only in something that is like such a great Ma'amad. Shabo Pakadu Kol B'ay Olam, that everyone is afraid of. Now that sounds weird at first. V'haya chova lefarsim es hayichud, not Ava this time. Okay. And there is an obligation to publicize oneness and to declare it at that time. Now it sounds like he's saying, like, what does it sound like he's saying here halakhically, that this obligation only exists in a scenario like that? Like, if you didn't know any halachas about Kiddush Hashem, what would you say that he means here?
It's only in public?
Yeah, and only in public, right? It sounds like he's saying that it's only in public, in a case of public gathering where there's intimidation based on fear, which accords with what he said above, by the way, which he said, L'farsim dasem is barabim v'shelo nira b'kach mehezek mazik ashafil yavo lo anas aretz v'yikrosan lachbor boisala lo nishma lo. Right. But we know clearly that Kiddush Hashem is not only in public, okay, but he goes on with that theme. He keeps on going. Yeshayahu already promised us that the disgrace of Israel, again focusing on the disgrace, will not be complete in that scenario. That youths, lads, will appear at that time, in that scenario, hakasha, in that harsh scenario, shelo yartiem hamavis, who will not be intimidated by death. Again, emphasizing intimidation by death. V'yafkiru damam, and they will give up their bloods. I don't know how to translate hefker here. They will make their bloods ownerless, but that's not really a good implication. V'farsamu es ha'emuna, and they will publicize the belief. V'kadshu es Hashem barabim, and they will sanctify the name in public. Kamoshni tzavinu al-yedei Moshe Rabbeinu, as Moshe Rabbeinu commanded. V'hu amru lo ata yevosh Yaakov. This is the quote from Yeshayahu. Not now will you be ashamed, Yaakov. Lo ata panav yechavaru, and your face will not be blackened now. Ki biroso yeladav maaseh yadai, for when I think when your lads, the work of my hands, are seen in his midst. Bekirbo, in the midst of Israel. Yakdishu Shemi, my name will be sanctified. V'hikdishu es kadosh Yaakov, and they will sanctify the Holy One of Yaakov. V'es Elokei Yisrael Yaritu, and they will be afraid of the God of Israel. So very interesting thing here. So I actually had to look up Ya'aritu because for some reason I thought arit meant to exult, like to be joyous. But then I realized Ya'aritu, where do we see that word recently?
Didn't we just have it?
We just had it, right? So that's the word that he uses for the intimidator. So it sounds like, you know, there is an element of Yiras Hashem here, meaning that the only one we have fear of is God, and we're not afraid of being harmed by anyone else. It's only being afraid of Hashem, and that's Elokei Yisrael Ya'aritu. So you don't succumb to the Aritz Ben Adam, but Ya'aritu Elokei Yisrael. So I think that's just an interesting dimension of Kiddush and Chilul Hashem here.
It's interesting that he says like that Moshe Rabbeinu commanded us. Like, why is he saying that?
Yeah, right. I mean, didn't Moshe Rabbeinu command us in all these mitzvahs? But yeah, this is the first time. I think this is the first time he's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu as the source of the mitzvah. Yeah, I don't know why he says that. Okay. Now we're almost done here. V'lashon Sifra. Almanas ka hotzesi eschem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Almanas she'takadshu es shemi barabim. In Sefer it says that this is why I took you out of Eretz Mitzrayim in order that you sanctify my name in public. Now we saw earlier in Mitzvah Beis. Oh, I can't scroll up because this is a PDF. But in the second mitzvah, the Rambam said that God took us out of Mitzrayim for Yichud Hashem. So this is the second time in the first 9 mitzvahs that he said about why God took us out of Mitzrayim. So again, clearly there's an inherent connection between Kiddush Hashem and Yichud Hashem. But anyway, that's again, apparently he views that this is an essential part of the mitzvah here. So that's something to think about. Gemara Sanhedrin, Amru, in Gemara Sanhedrin it says, Ben Noach mitzvah al Kiddush Hashem o eno mitzvah. So it asks the question, are Bnei Noach commanded in Kiddush Hashem or not, which is an interesting havamina. Tashma sheva mitzvos shnistau b'nei Noach v'iyata tmanya. V'isa tmanya havu. So the answer is no. That you come in here. Bnei Noach were commanded in 7 mitzvos. They were not, and if this is one of them, then that's 8. Okay, so what do you see from here? So you see from here that it's included that this is included in the minyan and mitzvos that is an obligation on all of Israel. And they bring a proof. I guess this is Chazal bringing a proof in the Gemara Sanhedrin that this is a mitzvah from the pasuk V'nikdashti b'sof b'nei Yisrael. And the laws of this mitzvah have already been spelled out in the 7th chapter of Sanhedrin. Now, I got confused when I read this and wondered, well, why is he talking about Bnei Noach? Why is he bringing in this Gemara? What would you say?
Wasn't it like similar? Oh yeah, you can go. Sorry.
I think this is his proof that it belongs in the minyan hamitzvos.
So why does he have to prove that it's in the minyan mitzvos? Because he hasn't done that yet.
No, didn't he do it for the first 2, or for what do you do for like?
You're right. He did for the first 2. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So I should say he doesn't. I keep on trying to scroll up. He hasn't done it consistently. So in other words, if you look through all the mitzvahs and the same mitzvahs, this is not something he does for every mitzvah. So the question is, why here?
The pasuk doesn't seem to be a tzivoy.
Exactly, right? I think that's the answer. Let's just look at the pasuk again. Pasuk says, "V'lo tachalalu es shem kodshi." That sounds like a mitzvah. But then "V'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael" sounds like a result, or an objective. So it's not clear that it's a mitzvah, and that's why he has to prove that it's a mitzvah. And the best Torah Shabbal Peh proof is the Gemara about the Shev Mitzvahs Bnei Noach. And only after you see that Torah Shabbal Peh treats it that way can you then quote the pasuk authoritatively as the source of the mitzvah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like he kind of went off on a little rant about how important
So let's just really quickly take stock of this entire thing. So he and divide it up. So he introduces the mitzvah in the beginning, then he defines the mitzvah from inyan ha-mitzvah up through achduso. Then he gives an example of the mitzvah, which apparently is part of the definition. or at least because it looks like he's just giving an example. But then he says, so it's clear that he's saying that that's part of the definition of the mitzvah. And then he ties it to the nevuah in Yeshayahu. Now that's the part where I lost him. I'm like, okay, do you really need to include that? You know, like, but okay, so that's one question. And then he goes into, then he hold on. That's also when he simultaneously introduces this idea of there's a shame to Klal Yisrael, shame, yeah, shame, to Klal Yisrael when they don't keep this mitzvah. Then the Yetzias Mitzrayim thing, which that's the part that's also not, I don't know why it's necessary. Then proving that it's counted as a mitzvah, and then his usual Dinah mitzvah. So what we need to keep an eye out for is, number one, you know, why does he put so much emphasis on barabim, almost to the exclusion of other manifestations of this mitzvah? Like, it almost seems like there is no Kiddush Hashem unless it's barabim. That's what you would think if you just read this. Number two, we need to see what the emphasis is on shame. Number three, we need to see what is it that we're sanctifying. I mean, again, like we use Das HaEmes, Hashem himself, the Shem Hashem, Yichud Hashem, Avas Hashem, and then why emphasize Yetzias Mitzrayim? And then another question, which we technically shouldn't have right now, is when we do the Mishneh Torah, we're going to see that there are a couple more cases of Kiddush Hashem that are not even mentioned here, like creating a good impression on people, and doing the mitzvah lishma. The Rambam is going to say doing the mitzvah lishma is a kiyum in Kiddush Hashem. So like that, but that doesn't show up here. Yeah. Okay, unless you have any questions on that, I think this is a good place to stop, because tomorrow we can start off with chilul Hashem in the Sefer Mitzvos, and then start the Mishneh Torah. We good?
I just had a thought about this.
Sure.
It seems that there's, at least to some extent, what's going on is that if you're aware of that's the wrong choice of word.
Just use the Arabic.
Yeah. I'd say, yeah, actually I'm going to use the Arabic. A person's itikad would, like, when a person is confronted with the situation where there's this where the person's threatening his life.
Yeah.
If a person has itikad in Shem Hashem, when they're faced with the situation, they'll they know that there's a greater reality than the situation,
right?
And so the chiyuv is to demonstrate that greater reality by not giving in, and also, like, I don't know how this is where this fits in terms of the structure, but by not being afraid, they're demonstrating their itikad.
Right. I think that's a good way to say it. And I think I would just to add one more thing to that is it's not just a demonstration. Let me think how to say this here. It's not just a demonstration of the reality of God. It is a demonstration of the value of Tov, the fact that Kiddush Shemo HaGadol is our value system in terms of Tov and Ra. And I'm getting this like from the the Stoics. Check out the Stoic Jew podcast at Buzzsprout now. That when they say, for example, when the Stoics make the statement that no one can harm you. So what do you mean no one can harm you? If I like break your leg, or if I punch you, or if I burn your house down, isn't that harm? The answer is no, it's not harm, because that's not you. The you, according to them, is your governing principle, and no one can affect your governing principle. So for us, when he said at the beginning that we are not afraid of any harm that can be done to us, if we define ourselves by our possessions or even by our lives, then that is then we can be harmed. But if we are essentially Mekadshe Shem Hashem, that's what we are. No one can harm us, because even when they threaten us and our death, we give ourselves up to sanctify the name of God. that's not harming us. In fact, it's actualizing our identity as a Mekadesh Shem Hashem. So it's both demonstrating the reality of the ideas, but also the fact that this is, but also our identity. And maybe that's where the cherpa comes in, that this is part of the identity of Klal Yisrael and of the Jew, that they are Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. They are a Mekadesh Shem Shemayim. Yeah. Alrighty. So yeah.
Kind of a question on that.
Sure.
Would you say that the part of the goal is to want, to just purely want to be Mekadesh Shem Hashem? If
that's a good question. I mean, you should go pick fights with bullies and say, hey, bet you can't taunt me to violate. No. You mean when you say want, is that my joke meant that is this something we actively seek out, or does it mean that when we're put to the test, then we do it?
Yeah, I'm saying is it beneficial to want to change your desires, I guess, so that you want it, sort of, is my question.
Good question. I mean, in abstract, the answer is yes, in the sense that I should want, that is what my ultimate driving goal in life should be, is kavod shemayim. And of course I would want my emotions to be on board with that and my value system. But that would not I guess the reason why I'm in doubt is because, let's say, there's no higher level than being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim the way that Hanani Mishan Lazari did or Rabbi Akiva did. So I could see someone who values Kiddush Hashem wanting an opportunity to do it on the highest level. But it sounds absurd to say I want to get myself into a situation where I die al Kiddush Hashem. So that's what I'm grappling with. Let's think about that. I think it's a good question to ponder as we go through the parak.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Talk to you later tonight or tomorrow, depending on which year you go to. All right. See ya.